Vamos, estamos en vivo nuevamente. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas aquí a esta nueva parte de Nerdearla 2022, novena edición, año 10º de CISARMI. Vamos a la siguiente charla del día. Antes que nada, yo sé que quizás a esta hora están diciendo, bueno, por ahí me miro y me voy. Tranquilos, ¿por qué? Porque después viene otra, que es la de Madoc, que va a estar muy buena. Y además tenemos un after. ¿Sí? Por pedido ya. Va a estar bueno, quédense, no se lo pierdan. Si están en el Conex, si no están en el Conex, mal ahí. Vengan mañana y vengan el sábado porque va a pasar lo mismo y va a estar muy bueno. No se lo pierdan. Bueno, ahora sí. Esta charla va a ser en inglés porque las personas que nos visitan son dos personas que vienen desde los Países Bajos. Estamos hablando de Sander Hoogendoorn y Kim van Wilgen, ahí está. Sander es un padre independiente, orador, escritor y viajero. Escribe código desde 1984 al día de hoy y es un CTO serial, actualmente trabajando en comercio electrónico llamado eBoot. Es un filósofo del código, agilista y operó como líder de pensamiento ágil global de Capgemini antes de convertirse en autónomo en 2015. Siguiendo con su adagio de que los pequeños pasos son el camino más rápido hacia adelante, Sander ayuda a empoderar las organizaciones, equipos e individuos y a cambiar sus formas de trabajo, tecnología y arquitecturas de código. Es autor de varios libros y de una tonelada de artículos, así que si lo buscan lo van a encontrar. Bueno, es un orador principal, reconocido, inspirador en conferencias internacionales sobre diversos temas, incluyendo disrupción, cultura, agile, beyond agile, continuous delivery, microdevices, mónadas, arquitectura de software y una parva de cosas más. Crack. Kim es una líder experimentada en el desarrollo de productos de software. Trabaja en Phillips, una empresa de externalización IT, para soluciones de camino crítico, de misión crítica, y ofrece soluciones que tal vez nunca fallen. Le apasionan temas como DevOps, continuous delivery, seguridad ágil y continua. Kim está interesada en los cambios culturales, organizacionales y tecnológicos asociados con esos desarrollos. Aunque es una nerd de corazón, también tiene más de una década de experiencia en el otro lado, el negocio. Es un gran beneficio para cerrar la brecha entre el negocio y IT, ¿no? Sabemos que es una cosa que a veces es difícil de sortear. Bueno, es ponente en congresos nacionales e internacionales sobre temas de agilidad y continuous delivery. Así que, bienvenidos, welcome, step on. Aplausos.
Hello, good evening. At least in the Netherlands where we live, people are now eating. It's 5:45, that's when they eat. And we usually eat a lot later, so we fit much better in Argentina, I think, because, well, yesterday
also
we
breakfast is later.
Also breakfast is later, which is good.
I like that.
Yeah. So, this is a talk about software development methodologies. Now, you've probably all seen quite a lot of them, including stuff like Agile and Scrum and Waterfall and all of this stuff. And since I used to work for large consultancies, and you work for a consultancy, so what consultancies do is they try to stay as long as possible with the customer, right? So that's how they make money, basically. So we figured out how to do that, right? So, that's what we're going to present, of course, right? So, I think they already read quite a few long bio of us, so we're going to do it briefly. This is me. I'm Sander. I'm an independent dad, as I call it, and I speak, I travel, I write, stuff like that. But mostly, I write code. I've been writing code for the last 44 years. And I still write code every day, well, except for today, but I did write some code earlier this week already in Argentina. Currently, I work for a company called iBoot. By the way, this is all my social stuff if you want to follow it. But I work for this e-commerce company called iBoot. And the nice thing about iBoot is this is part of my team. And actually, this guy is Francisco, and he's from Buenos Aires. So, but it gets better, right? This is the other half of my team. And this is Claudia, and this is Gisela. They're also from Argentina. Claudia is from Cordoba, and Gisela is from Buenos Aires too. So I have cups of mate on the desks every day, right? And the first time I saw that, I was like, what is that, right? And but I didn't get to taste it until earlier this week when we got here, and well, they made me taste it today again. It's not that bad, actually, right? It's like, I don't get why people walk around with cups all day everywhere they go, but it's it's a thing, I guess, right? So that was me.
Yeah. So, and I work currently at a consultancy. I didn't always work there. So I worked at an insurance company as a CIO, worked on the business side of things before that as a manager. And when I moved into management of IT, I kind of noticed that I was the least suitable person to make big architectural decisions in the room. So I kind of lost my whole belief in the concept of management in IT as we know it. So I started dreaming of self-organizing teams and true mandate with the teams, and I tried to find a company that would actually provide me with the opportunity, and there came Schuberg Philis. We have no managers, so I'm not a manager anymore, and I really like that. I do still do leadership. I know something about people and organizations, and that's still something you need in a team. So that's my role now, and I really like that. It also gives me the chance to become more and more technical, because I have a lot of great technical people around me, because what we do is mission critical IT. That means that we do IT that can never fail. We promise 100%. We do that for governments, for utilities, for railroads, for ports, for airports, for banks, for insurance companies, everything that actually should work. And that gives me the opportunity to do things really good. And we don't always get that opportunity in tech, right? Mostly we have a lot of rush and little budget. We have a lot of budget and the ask of the customer to give 100%. So I love that. And we love traveling. I have a boyfriend, that's him. So we're a couple, we have this great opportunity that we both love traveling. So when we were asked to get here, we said yes. Of course we want to be here.
Yes.
And we found that Argentina is the people with the most fun in their life. I really believe that now. So everywhere you go, there's a party. That's great.
Yeah,
we have to come back.
And we ended up in some parties already, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah. So let's hit it off. So let's start with a short, very brief history of everything that we've seen so far in this industry. Now, I have been in this industry quite a long time, right? I wrote my first lines of code in 1979 or 1978. I'm not really clear about that, but so it's a long time. So I've seen most of this stuff, right? And this industry is actually quite young, but it started off with this nice little thing called waterfall, right? So you have to imagine that before waterfall, there was nothing, right? We didn't have software development methodologies. That's when life was still good, right? And then came waterfall. And the nice thing about waterfall is that it should have actually never have existed, right? That is, yeah, you might wonder, why is that? Well, I'll show you. So this is the white paper, the original white paper that waterfall was first described in. It's called Managing the Development of Large Software Systems by a guy called Winston Royce, who worked for Lockheed. And he actually wrote a white paper that includes this picture. You've seen this picture, right? You should have seen this picture. Well, probably in school, but people actually did this, right? So they went on to say, you know what, we're going to do some system requirements. When they're done, we do software requirements, and we do a lot of analysis. And when all the analysis is done, we know everything about the system there is to know. And then we start building it, and after it's been built totally, like takes another 2 years, then you test it, and once it gets tested, it goes into production, and then it lives forever, right? That's what people thought it would do. Well, of course, we all realize that doesn't really work because, well, things change, and things change a lot in this industry because, well, basically, well, I write a lot of JavaScript, right? There's new JavaScript frameworks coming out. Like, if you don't watch, if you go to the toilet, you come back, bam, new JavaScript framework. That's how it works, right? So fast, stuff changes. So you can never, ever be done with a system early on in its life. Right? So that's the problem with this model. Now, here's the interesting thing about this white paper. It's that, actually, this is the next picture. By the way, the only reason it's called waterfall is because this picture has like, well, it looks like a waterfall. It's not Iguazu, but it's a waterfall still, right? So, and Iguazu is massive, by the way. But so, and the only reason that he put them like this is that the word processor he had in 1970, when he wrote this white paper, could not put 7 boxes next to each other on one line. That's why we have waterfall, right? That this is the actual origin of the stuff. Now the problem is that in the next picture, in the same white paper, he says, well, basically it should be a bit like this. This is also still 1970, right? He says, well, hopefully the iterative interaction between the various phases is confined to successive steps. What he actually says is, well, at some point in time, you might want to go back into a previous stage. And you might even want to go back in the stage before that because, well, sometimes you just learn something by writing the code or writing the test that you have to change the design. In traditional waterfall, you don't do that, right? So, but the problem is, he actually wrote this in 1970, and we all misinterpreted. I worked for large consultancies for a long time. They all misinterpret. They all do this. They do this model, right? Okay, everything is done on the design. Then we start coding. They don't go back. But the weird is that if you look at Agile, what Agile does, it actually does do this, right? It goes back all the time, which is good. It's a lot better, right? So actually, Winston Royce is coined as the father of waterfall. He should actually have been the great-grandfather of Agile. And we should have actually skipped the stage of 40 years of failing projects in waterfall because they miserably failed most of the time. And he actually writes this. He says, note that it is simply the entire process done in miniature, so the whole waterfall process, done in miniature to a time scale that is relatively small with respect to the overall effort. He actually says, you should probably be better at this when you push this stuff into small, well, let's call them iterations, right? Or sprints or whatever you might have, right? And then you can do this stuff. So you do some analysis, some design, you build it, you test it, you deploy it, you put it into production, next iteration. How does that sound, right? He wrote this down in 1970. We could have saved ourselves 40 years of failing projects. So, and then came Agile, right? So, the Agile Manifesto was written in 2001. So, we started investigating iterative approaches long before that, right? So, Scrum is much older than that. Rational Unified Process, DSDM. I wrote with my team an Agile approach in 1996, which was pretty much what the Agile Manifesto says, with some modeling and some architecture, but it was there, right? And it sort of swiped everything away that was before that. So if you were doing rational unified process or you're doing waterfall, it all went out. I actually worked for this large consultancy. They said, well, I came in there in 2005 and said, I'm going to help you get rid of rational unified process. I said, no, that's a good process. And I said, no, it's not. And they continued, and eventually, well, we got rid of rational unified process. The problem with Agile is that if you look at the Agile Manifesto, so if you not look from a perspective of like Scrum or one of the other approaches, if you just look at the manifesto, it's basically very little. You can summarize it in saying, try to learn every day from what you do. That would be a very short summary of the Agile Manifesto. A lot of people saw it like this when it came out. Like, oh yeah, we're going to do Agile programming. That means no more planning, no more documentation. Just write code and complain. And that's still what a lot of people are doing, right? So, and then it went on. And then, well, something like Scrum became popular, right? And this is, well, my own handwriting about what I think Scrum looks like. And a lot of people started doing that. And then a lot of people identified that there's lots of money to be made in Agile, right? You can do training courses, you can become a Scrum Master or a product owner, or you can do, well, lots of things to make money, basically, but and to keep people busy, of course. So, and when that started going, you see that a lot of the original people who started doing Agile in the, let's say, early years of the century, they started saying like, yo, you know what, Agile is dead. Like Dave Thomas says, well, I'm not going to go to Agile conferences anymore. He said, well, the word Agile has been subverted to the point where it's effectively meaningless, and what passes for an Agile community seems to be largely an arena for consultants and vendors to hawk services and products. Basically, to make money out of it. And the intentions were always good, right? We always had the intentions of collaboration and stuff, but somehow it started like, lots of people started making money too. And our good friend Alan, he puts it, well, on the next slide actually, but if you go to Agile conferences, have you been to Agile conferences? Do you like Agile conferences? No. Why don't you like them? They suck. That's a good argument.
He's right.
He's right. He is right, actually. So this is what you see at Agile Conference. Like, make sure, this is actually quotes from Agile Conference. I stopped going to, by the way. But make sure you don't miss the Agile elephant versus the waterfall elephant in the lobby. What the fuck is that? Or during this session, this is actually a sentence from a guy I know, actually. During this session, we're going to discuss the happiness index of projects. Woo! I'm ready for celebration, which is good with all the candy and cakes we have here in Argentina, right? But ready for celebration before the done column on your Kanban board. That should solve the problem, right? Just add a ready for celebration column. Yay, we're done, right? And this is where Ellen comes in, our good friend Ellen says. He says, well, basically, more and more, I'm coming to see the term Agile as both unnecessary and self-defeating. Cool. Agile has come to mean do part of Scrum badly and use Jira. So he suggests, let's just drop it, right? And maybe that's a good point.
Well, we have a better idea. We're going to invent our own methodology.
Yes, good.
So it's about time we introduce flow, because this is the official worst software methodology in history. And competition was high, because we already have Scrum. So why yet another methodology? Well, it's simple. We did research, and we found that the longer we are on a project as consultants, the more money we make. So what if we would make a methodology that would make our projects run as long as we possibly could? Because then we make more money. It's quite simple, right? We need thousands and thousands of money to survive in Argentina. So, so what we try to do is actually be inspired by the current methodologies. And there's a lot of inspiration, luckily. But first, before we start, we had to do the most important thing in software. We had to name our methodology. So that was a hard one, because naming is always hard. So we need Japanese words, right? We need Kaizen, Kanban, Obeya, Origami. Origami is the art of tearing off Post-its. And we need something with crossy, like holacracy, sociocracy, idiocracy. And maybe it would help if it starts with a D, like continuous discovery, disappointment, or continuous disagreement. With the managers. Yeah. Also something with #no and something with less, like no ops, no projects, no estimates. Maybe no SQL, no testing, no code. No code is actually a thing in software development. At least it is in Europe.
So is no SQL.
Yeah. I don't know if it has landed here yet. It's horrible. Don't ever do that. And serverless, pointless. Of course, something as a service like SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, TaaS, testing as a service, X as a service, where you can just add anything instead of X. We thought, well, maybe methodology as a service, MAS. But in the end, we just came up with flow because it fits really nice on stickers. And that was the main requirement. So, for instance, this sticker, when you just start, this is what you receive when you enter in a course. Then, if you advance, you can go with the flow. Of course, if you are a front-end developer, you have this sticker because it's more hipster. You can also feel the flow when you are a flow master. And you can, in the end, surrender to the flow. And that is all because we have this sticker on our laptop.
Yes, flow, right? So, yes. So, now it has a name. So, what are we going to put in it, right? So, the first thing that comes to mind is sprints. Do you like sprints? Do you have sprints? Who doesn't have sprints? Oh, everybody, right? Let's put it there. Who likes them? Do you like sprints, having sprints? More or less. Well, that's the problem, right? The problem with sprints is that they're actually sort of like mini projects, right? There's the product owner comes to you and says, give me an estimate for what you can do in the next 2 weeks, given this theme or this goal or whatever it does, right? And then you sort of give an estimate, right? Which you should never do, by the way, unless it's 42. And then you start doing the work, like in this particular project, which was in Belgium, by the way. So they estimated their work at the start of the sprint. They had a monthly sprint, and then at the end, they had some work left. We didn't make it. And then the second month, they had the same thing, and the third month, they had the same thing. And then the project manager, this still had a project manager. This is in 2007 or so. Oh, 2013, actually. So, and he said, well, what? These people can't estimate. I said, well, no, you know they can't, right? Because work changes all the time and technology changes all the time. We're always doing new stuff. So we are in the realm of the unknown unknowns. So we cannot estimate. And he says, yes, but the project needs to be finished. And then it got really later and later and later. And then the project manager said, we need to bring in more resources. So he hired 300 people from India to finish the project. You know what happens when you do that, right? Not because of people of India, but if you add more resources to a late project, the project gets even later, right? That's the whole point. So the whole thing with these sprints is they force you to fit stuff into particular time boxes. And if you do that, that also always means that what do you do if there's work left in the end of the sprint? And then some people say, well, we have a red sprint, it's failed. And I've seen quite recently a project where they had time left on the sprint because they did all the work on the sprint, but they didn't want to pick up new work because otherwise their velocity would be different from the next sprint and they wouldn't be able to do the work for the next sprint. Terrible argument, but people do that. So my indication would be stop doing this stuff, right? It doesn't really help. Also, there's this thing with estimates, right? So we are usually forced to give estimates, and we can't because it changes all the time. If you're in an environment where everything changes, if there's technology that you're using for the first time, even if somebody in California has already done it, that doesn't really matter, right? If your team hasn't done it, it's hard, right? So the only estimate I always give is 42. So I put it on my arm just to be sure I never forget. And the things, you should not do this, right? Don't let yourself be forced.
Don't get a tattoo, you mean? Or?
What? No, get the tattoo is good, right? Because you can just say to the manager, like, 42, dude. And I actually did that last week, by the way. So estimates are basically, so if you want a failing methodology, you have to put estimates in on all sorts of levels, right? Whether that's in story points or Fibonacci numbers or whatever you do, doesn't really matter. Put them in anyway, right? And basically spend a lot of time on creating these estimates because, well, it's time, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That's the one thing we don't have.
Next thing we need is gamification.
Yes.
Because in the end, in the Agile manifesto, there was something written that people need autonomy. We believe that the best architectures and designs and requirements come from self-organizing teams. So in a lot of methodologies, we had to deal with that. We had to give power to the people, basically. So, but autonomy is quite hard, as is my clicker. So we put it on a leash because our teams are autonomous, but we really don't want them to hire people because that's kind of critical to business. We don't want them to fire people because people might get hurt. We don't want them to do any appraisals because, well, programmers don't understand how to praise each other. They don't get to decide what's on the backlog. That's a power that's only to the product owner because he's the only one who really understands the product, not the people who are building it day after day. And they don't get to spend any money, of course, because, well, we don't trust anyone other than managers with spending money. Yeah. So, yes, you get autonomy, but we decide what's on the backlog. We decide who's on what team, we decide what tools you are using, and we decide when you have meetings. But, of course, we do want this autonomy, so what you get to do is you get to decorate your working space.
And make it look just like your home, right?
Like this. How great is that? And of course you can play ping pong when you have some time left in your red sprint, which you never do, but still the table will be there and it feels like you have some power.
Oh, we have a pool table.
You have a pool table?
Yeah, we do.
Did you ever use it?
No, I have no time. The managers do, by the way.
We have all these kind of cool gadgets, but we are self-organizing. We never use them anyway. So it's about mandatory fun. Maybe we're overdoing it a bit. This is me in a job interview at a big e-commerce company in the Netherlands, and I was in a ball pit. I really did not expect that. I was so happy I was wearing pants that day. So yes, maybe we are overdoing it a bit with the mandatory fun.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So next thing we should add is we should talk about teams and roles and resources, of course. What?
Yeah, we can change around, sorry.
Yeah, but your clicker doesn't work, so maybe if you're closer, then it works?
It does work. My eyes don't work from there to see the slides. So I thought if we change positions.
Maybe you need glasses. We should put glasses in flow as well, right?
Yeah.
So mandatory glasses.
I need my binoculars from here.
Oh yeah, you can use this. So I'm back here. So welcome back. We're now going to talk about teams and roles, and of course resources. So here's the nice thing about teams, right? So if you look at most agile approaches that you have, they're like, well, let's do this in small teams, and none of them is actually quite explicit about, except for Scrum. Scrum says it used to be 6 plus or minus 3, then it became 7 plus or minus 2, and I think in the latest edition of Scrum, because they version as well, like every 5 years, and it now is like below 10 or something. It's changed, but it's still kind of small. The problem in software development is that, well, small teams are nice, but software development is fairly complex, right? And you need to have the skills and the knowledge about a lot of different stuff, including tooling, including monitoring, including infrastructure, including cloud, including Docker and Kubernetes and
Security.
Well, yeah, well.
Testing.
Testing. Oh yeah. Yeah. So basically, there's agile approach. This is called an agile approach, right? This is called Disciplined Agile version 2.0, and it has all of these roles, and these are just the roles that they describe outside of the team. So if you want to have a long-lasting project, you should probably get into all of these into all of these roles. You should fill in all of these roles. I once worked for a company, it was a bank actually, where we did the actual work with like 6 people, but that wasn't big enough for that particular bank, so we just put in 30 people around the project that didn't do anything basically, from bank personnel itself, and just we kept them busy basically, because yeah, well, it was an important project, so a lot of people had to work on it. Really weird situation. So it can get worse. Recently we figured out this one. It's called Auto Scrum. Have you heard of this? Okay, well, let's not discuss because the authors of the framework are actually the sponsors here. So maybe a nice, cool framework, right? I have no idea where the work is done, but I think it's in Frop. I think it's here somewhere. But actually, they coined it like a couple of years ago. But this is really interesting framework. And yes. So, and of course, we have to talk about SAFe a little bit. And I'm going to do a short quiz with you on SAFe because, well, SAFe is... It's safe, right? So this is another much too big framework that people put out there, and it has too many roles and too many. So you need to put all of these roles in your approach as well, right? So the big question on this sheet is, where's the customer? Right, that's the whole point, right? Did you figure it out? It's that person here on the right side of the diagram being hit by the train. So we need to have a train. And then we need to talk about resources, right? So these are, this is us, right? So by the way, if you want to be a resource, you need to have a beard, apparently. And, well, so I'm good, actually. You're not, so...
Working on it.
You'll never make it as a programmer, right? You don't have a beard. It's like... and well, managers starting to call us resources anyway. So we need more resources for the project. I always say, like, what do you mean? Tables or chairs or computers or what? So now, sorry, we mean people, then they say, right? So this is the point, right? And if you look at all these people that have come into this agile arena, like agile coaches and scrum masters and all these types, they have their own conferences. You have agile code camps, or sorry, no code here, of course, but agile coach camps. What do they do there? Well, they learn how to play, basically. Because, well, playing is really important if you write software, right? So they have like, so this is they really enjoyed the first Obeya Knowledge Network meetup in Amsterdam last Friday. This is about a year ago, right? A great group of professionals sharing expertise and experiences. None of them writes code, by the way, but, and they have a, well, where is it? I figured out, oh yeah, they have this like, there's a play conference actually for agile coaching, and you learn to be a better coach. Does that help you write better code? No, it doesn't, but it helps to keep people busy, right? And they're doing stuff like this. See, they do games, and they do like zooming more into agile metrics and the marriage between Scrum and Kanban. By the way, it also does flow, I see now. I didn't see that. Well, at least they had a great lunch, right? So that's important. Or like this, right? They're liberating structures. Not alone that they do their games themselves, but they want to push those games onto us, the developers. And I really much rather just write code, basically, than be in a helping heuristic session or a generative relationship session or the critical uncertainty sessions. I have no idea what this stuff is actually. They're all like, the gamification that we do in this industry has become far beyond what any other industry is doing, right? So we're going to do all these games in Flow as well, right? We should. And the whole thing is, so I've tried to help my teams to be self-organized. Actually, I left my team in Amsterdam when we came to Argentina a week and a half ago, and I hope they're still there, right? They are, and they're doing their work perfectly. But self-organizing is actually extremely hard, because for most people, we're not used to this, right? For most people, it's a bit like this. This is our comfort zone, and this is where self-organization is. Self-organization is pretty tough. So, you know what we'll do? We'll just throw it at everybody in Flow and say, okay, you have to be self-organizing. You know, one of my earlier teams, when I said that they needed to be self-organizing, and I said, well, you can make your own decisions, right? And if you want to spend money, just spend it, because I think you're responsible. And the first question I got from my team was, what do you want us to do? And I was like, well, it's your work, figure it out. I have one of my developers on my team, when I came to this team, she said, well, do you want me to work on the new TypeScript stuff, or you want me to work on the Python stuff that we are running already? And I'm like, it's your work, right? You should know better than I do, so it's your responsibility. He says, yeah, but I don't know what to choose. And well, make a decision, right? So it's really hard, actually. Because, well, basically, you can tell people to self-organize. You can say, okay, you start drawing an owl, basically like this, and then, well, figure it out yourselves. That's the problem with self-organization, right? So, yes, let's put that all in there, right? All in this methodology. And the only thing for me as a programmer, I'm like, where's the fucking code? All of this agile stuff that we're talking about, it's all about process and people and so on. And it's important, of course, but I just want to write my code, right? That's just what I do.
Well, let's talk about collaboration a little bit more, because we also need DevOps,
yes.
Of course. DevOps is something that was born from the idea of collaborating between operations and development to make the process go faster. But instead, we found out that we can have lengthy discussions about the order of the words. These things are happening on the internet. Like, we think it shouldn't be DevOps, it should be OpsDev, because it means front-loading ops considerations into your software development project. So you have to think about these things before you start working on the software. Of course, we also see this, SecDev, SecOpsSec.
Yeah.
It's because, well, people started
like
wondering where security is. Well, security is important somewhere, so people started calling it DevSecOps. And then somebody said, well, no, security is important at the beginning and in the middle and at the end. So we're going to name it SecDev, SecOpsSec. Anybody in Sec that wants to have this as a job title on their business card? So, of course, we also want these lengthy discussions. So we first went back to the source of it. And DevOps as a word was actually coined by Patrick Dubois. He's Belgium. And he picked DevOps days because he was organizing a conference like this for system administrators to guide them. He saw Agile is becoming a thing, software is speeding up, and we need to keep pace with operations. So let's have a conference about Agile system administration. And he started calling it Agile System Administration Conference, and that was literally too long to fit on stickers. So he named it DevOps Days. And that's where the word DevOps was coined. And there was never a big plan for the word DevOps. However, the lengthy discussions make our projects last very long, so we're definitely going to keep that. So what will be Flow's collaboration mindset? We want community, not only business, because BizDevOps kind of does not include everybody. We want development because we still think we need to write some code in our software development projects. We want operations. We want analysts because we need to think before we write code. And we also want some security. So that's called ComDevOps Anal Sex. And I think everybody who doesn't want to be in a ComDevOps Anal Sex team, right? Raise your hand. This you want on your business card. Well, we got some objections and people started laughing. We don't really understand, so we're also considering just calling it resources, which will be RES.
RES, yeah, just RES, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about meetings. Who doesn't like meetings? Or maybe it's easy to ask, who likes meetings? I try to avoid as much as possible, to be honest. Actually, I now became a manager because I'm the CTO, which means I still do write my code every day, but I have to sit in a meeting every now and then. So I made a deal with the rest of the management team to be on the management team meeting, which is every week, and there's a daily stand-up every day. And I sort of dodged. So I came out of it. I only have to be at the management team meeting once every 2 weeks. That saves a lot of time, by the way. It also missed some information, but the fact that I don't have to be there is kind of nice, actually. But the thing is, we have meetings in agile approaches as well, right? So we have the stand-up meeting. Do you like stand-up meetings? Yeah? No, me neither. It's like I used to like them, actually. When we first started doing this in 1998, so that's 24 years ago? What the fuck have I been doing? How many meetings did I go to, right, in 24 years? I liked it because it's nice and you can sort of share what you're working on and you know what the other people are working on or the other resources are working on. And so that's okay, right? So that is nice, right? And but from the flow perspective, it's much better. If you've done this for 24 years, and I still have them every day, by the way, they're sort of like boring. I try to do them as quick as possible, but it doesn't always really work, right? Also, well, not everybody likes them anymore. They're too much, right? So the good thing is, they do break developers who are in flow, right? So if you have your stand-up meeting at 10 in the morning, for instance, that is probably in Argentina when most people just got up, or I have no idea. At least I do, but it's in Argentina then. But so I have people on my team who come in at 6 in the morning, right? 6 in the morning, really. And he's called Eugene. Eugene comes in at 6 in the morning. And then when the stand-up is at 9:30, when you have them at 9:30, some people come in earlier, some people come in later. They do it in their car or whatever they do. And the problem is, it breaks the flow. If you're working nicely and you're writing your code, and all of a sudden you have to be in a meeting, it breaks the flow, right? So that's not a good point. Most people just come in, read their emails, and then go to the stand-up, which is much more efficient because you waste a lot of time, right? But so we decided to keep them in. But because they are sort of like useful, they're just far too often, right? We'll just do them once every week or something like that, and then for about 2 hours or something. That's good, right? So once a week, at least they have to last at least an hour. So we have a time box for it, and then every Tuesday from like 9 to 1. We had that at a company actually. They said, well, yeah, but it's important, so we're going to do this once a week, and we're going to take the whole morning for a stand-up meeting, right? It's pretty cool. It doesn't really work well. And then the retrospectives. Do you have retrospectives? Yeah? Do you try to dodge them, or do you go, actually? Because retrospectives, the problem with those is that, well, they're usually like once a month or once every 2 weeks, and then, usually we have to do demos. For some reason, people want demos on a retrospective or whatever that other meeting is called that Scrum has at the end of the sprint. And you spend like days preparing the demos, right? Which means if you spend time on working on the demos, you cannot do the real work, right? So if you want to lengthen your project, you should do demos all the time and spend lots of time preparing those demos. So that's good, right? So also, we should discuss with the whole team for about an hour or two every 2 weeks how we could go faster, how we could improve. And then usually what happens is nobody does anything. Right? It just stays the same. If you've been in longer running projects, we have this, how can we improve the next sprint? Yeah, we should probably do this. Yeah, we tried that 2 weeks before. Nobody did anything. So we're going to try it again. Yeah, we're going to try it again and still do nothing, right? So it doesn't really change if you do this, right? Because, but we're going to keep them in, but we're going to do them more often because, well, they spend a lot of time in it, right? And the improvements, well, nobody does them anyway, so let's share them. Oh, by the way, this is Lego. You always need a Lego reference in a talk, so here is ours. So here's the real issue, right? This is serious research being done. I forgot what it's about. I still have it somewhere, and it basically says this. A programmer takes between 10 to 15 minutes to start editing code after resuming work from an interruption. 10 to 15 minutes, right? It's not right. I know this feeling, right? At some point in time, you really get into flow, right? And then you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, you're just in the zone writing your code. It takes time to get there. So every interruption you have is good, because it takes longer to write the code, right? So that means whenever we can break the flow, we'll try to do that. So we'll just organize random meetings throughout the week for all sorts of stuff, like, I don't know what, design sessions, some UX stuff, or testing sessions, or approval, or stakeholder meetings, or meeting with the marketing team, or whatever you can think of. And by the way, every meeting should have a Jira board assigned to it, because that's useful. I don't know what for, but we'll try to do this always, by the way, on the whole team. And you know what? We're going to do it on Teams too, because, well, you know what happens on Teams? Usually people run in late, computer doesn't work, Teams doesn't do work, and it takes about 10 minutes before the meeting actually starts after the point in time that it should start. So all that is basically, well, prone to sort of spend time on, right? So,
Yeah. So
then
what
the
we also
enterprise.
need is where the big money is, flow in the enterprise.
Yes.
So what we want is, the question is, does Agile, or we could just call it Scrum because everybody does that anyway, does it scale? So is Agile essentially, if you do it in the enterprise, is it multiple iterations of small teams doing intense collaboration with each other, thinking about the best next thing to do, is that scalable? Or do we need something big around it? Something to make sure that all the teams head in the same direction. How do we solve that puzzle? It's yet unknown, I guess. So what we definitely are gonna ask is, does large-scale Agile actually require a large-scale process? Something like SAFe. Who works in the SAFe project?
Oh, poor you. Quit.
Yes, we have jobs at our companies. Please apply. No, it's terrible. I mean, I work for a bank, and they always did waterfall projects. They changed to a SAFe project about half a year ago because they wanted to go faster. It always took us about 4 months to get them to do something for us because they did some of the operations and we needed to be very far ahead to ask them to do something. And now we asked something in February and they still haven't done it because it needs to be in the PI planning and that has to be at least 9 months in advance because now we're working Agile. Somehow I didn't understand. Probably it's just me.
Oh.
So it takes a lot and a lot and a lot of time in SAFe projects because you have all the backlogs synced into one big thing. That means that if you make a small change, it will be kind of a butterfly effect. The whole thing starts failing. That's what we want. What about sociocracy? That can make it even harder to understand what we're doing, what we're aiming for, because now we're talking about all these meeting practices and co-creation and evolution instead of the product we're building and how to make it better. Yeah. So we definitely want that. And we also all want to copy Spotify. Who's in a Spotify project? This is really a thing in Europe. Sorry. Everybody in Europe is in a Spotify project. But only like, I don't know, 200 of them actually work at Spotify, which makes it a bit strange. So in Spotify we have tribes and we have chapters and squads and guilds and everybody is at least part of something, at least part of 4 of them. And Spotify invented this methodology because at a certain point in time they were growing 8x every year. So every year, if you looked around, there were 8 colleagues that weren't there the year before. That's a rapid growth rate. And because the growth rate was so rapid, they needed something to make sure that everybody knew where they were going. Because nobody was there the last year. Nobody had any idea of the culture of the company and of the purpose of the company. They had to explain and explain and explain. And now banks, I don't know who works at a bank, banks change very slow. And now they're copying this methodology to explain to people who have been working there for 35 years where they are going. It makes no sense to copy this. And when banks copy this, well, a big bank in the Netherlands did this, they of course kept all the managers. So instead of already having, at Spotify there was a ratio of 1 to 2, so every manager had 2 direct reports. And that's all. So there was a very high degree of managers, and they copied it and kept all the other managers as well. So that's horrible.
Yeah. 11 layers, right, of managers.
Sorry?
11 layers of managers, right?
11 layers of managers.
11 layers of managers.
On top of the Spotify model, where every 2 people had 1 manager. So we definitely want that. We invented the Big Flow framework. Shortly, it's called BFF. We're gonna start in 3.0, like management 3.0 and sociocracy 3. It's just good to start at number 3. We will add more complexity with every new release, just like SAFe.
They're now at version 6, right? So we're behind them
we're
already.
behind. Because I think they listen. They don't put the customer at the end of the release train anymore. I hate that they stopped doing that. So we cannot upgrade. We have a breaking change. And of course, we will copy Spotify like everybody, and also Basecamp like every startup does. Yeah.
Sounds good, right? So what else do we need? Like tooling. We need tooling, right? So usually tooling is prescribed by managers. That's how it works. I had a very lengthy discussion with a manager at one point in time why I wanted to buy a license of WebStorm. And he totally didn't get it. He said, well, you can use Visual Studio Code, right? I said, no, I need WebStorm. How much is it? He said, well, 250 euros. That's like a gazillion pesos, I guess. But it's, well, at least tomorrow. And so I didn't check today, but and you have all these discussions with managers like 16 layers up for little to no budget, right? So that's good, right? So that takes a lot of time before they come back and they're like, so what is this not just tool that you have there, right? What does it do? And you need to explain what it does, and then they maybe we should, well, they don't make the decisions. It takes a long time, so it's going on and on and on. So, but the tools we at least use in all our projects are boards. You all have them, right? Boards. Usually, probably in Jira, but these are acoustic boards, right? This is actual paper on a board. This is an actual board from a project in France, actually. So we need boards, but we need so many boards that the people who look at it and have no idea what you're doing have no idea what you're doing. Because you want to confuse them, right? Because you don't want to see that there's no progress. They want to have to look at this board and say, oh, it looks good. Yes, that is very good. I have no idea what they're talking about usually. So you make them so complex that nobody understands what's on the board. So you need to at least in Flow have 20 columns on your board, including ready for celebration, of course.
Ready for mate.
What?
Ready for mate.
Ready?
That can be every
ready for mate. That would be nice. Like, so that's the stage where when you move a post-it, you can actually allow to take a sip of your mate, right? So
and then you can move it again.
And then you can move it again, right, to the next stage. That would be cool, right? So, and if you do enterprise flow, you have a special room to put all the boards on the wall. It's called the board room. And of course, well, we need to have Jira, right? Who doesn't love Jira? The best tool ever invented. And sorry, Atlassian, I like Atlassian as a company. I'm not really sure about this tool. It became too complex, basically. They just stuffed everything in there, and nobody knows what to do. But hey, well, if you have Jira, you're agile, right? I actually have a manager once came up to me and said, well, we're using Jira, so we're agile. And I'm like, what? Yeah, well, that's how it works, right? Yeah, so Jira has become mandatory on Flow project. You need to have it, right? By the way, you can do Kanban boards and Scrum boards on Jira. So we required you to do both because you have no idea where to put the stuff then anymore, right? That's good. Also, yes, what's the unit of work we have? Well, we supply like stories and tasks and epics and lots of other stuff you can think of, like whatever, use cases and issues and tickets. And so you can push everything to each other, and there's no idea what the relationship between them is. So that's good, right? So do you have tickets and issues, or?
No.
No, oh good. Oh. Well, you should. And then, of course, we do always register our estimates in Jira, and then it says, well, basically, if you have an estimate, and then you actually start monitoring the time spent on those issues and those tickets and stuff, and it becomes a project management tool. Don't tell your manager that it can do that, because they're actually going to want you to do that. So, yeah. By the way, we put all our requirements and our design, everything in Jira, because Jira is our documentation tool as well, right? Because then it fits nicely into the boards. So yeah, we need to have that. By the way, monitoring progress, who cares, right? If you have no progress, there's also nothing to monitor. So we figured out that we could have something called a burn chart, instead of a burn down chart, because, well, there's nothing going down and you burn all this money, right? So it's called a burn chart. I have an example, actually. This is an actual chart from a project. It was in the Netherlands, right? Yeah. So we were both on this project, actually.
This was a low-code project.
A low-code project.
Don't do this.
Yeah, right. So what they actually had is like, so they solved all this, they resolved story points. I have no idea how you resolve a point, but that's what they did, right? So the green line goes up. But the nice thing is that the story points remaining, which is the purple line, also still goes up. So this project is basically never ending, right? This is called a burn chart. You need to have a burn chart in your project for sure, right? A little bit about communication. Because, what do these resources want to do? They want to stay in flow. So you have to figure out how to do that. So you create open floor plans, right? Where you put everybody in the same room. That makes a lot of noise, and nobody can get actually into the flow because, there is everybody in the same room. It is actually a resource being done which says basically your office's open floor plan is ruining your productivity, right? Luckily we got COVID because now everybody can work from home, right? By the way, resources they are required to wear noise-canceling headphones, which half of my team actually does when they're working. So that means that they're across from me, literally across from me, and if I have to reach out to them, I have to send them a message on Slack. And they reply, and they don't even look, right? It's like, they're by the way, if you want to be a resource, you need to have tattoos on your lower arms as well, right? It's mandatory. Yeah, sorry, Kim. So, and in Flow 2, we started to experimenting with augmented reality and VR and AR. It doesn't really work because you couldn't see the code anymore, so we stopped doing that. That's the tooling. Of course, Slack. Then there's Slack, right? I don't like Teams, so I'm not going to talk about Teams anyway, but Slack is equally nice because you can do lots of interesting stuff with Slack that nobody really needs. Because, if you have to be in flow and people send messages to you throughout the day and you start responding immediately, which a lot of people do, then you're never going to do the work. So this is good, right? By the way, I switch off my Slack notifications all the time. And communication between different resources, only through Slack. They're not allowed to talk, right? So it doesn't really work that way. And if you occasionally, when they want to work together, they have to do pair Slacking, which means they can both sit at Slack and type stuff to them and send screenshots of the code and back and forth and stuff like that. We actually do that, by the way. So it's a nasty thing. By the way, for every release and every tag that you have, always create a Slack channel. We actually have a Slack channel for every web page we build. Well, you might believe it or not. Well, actually 2, because there's also for the mobile app as well. So that's really nice. By the way, and then there's the Agile coach, so they have something useful to do, is if you don't reply to something in a thread, but in the main thread, they'll kick you out. They'll say, no, reply in the thread. I think that's basically the main role for Agile coaches, right?
I think they get it.
Yeah?
So, but what else do we need? Is somebody missing something? Every time you click... Anyways, we miss manifestos, of course, because we don't have them yet. So what is a manifesto in the end? It's a published verbal declaration of the intentions, motives, and views of the issuers. So there were great manifestos in history, which had pages and pages to explain to people their innovative thoughts, their innovative line of reasoning. And then came the manifestos of Agile. The manifesto for software development, everybody knows that, right? It has 4 lines that says, the things on the left are slightly more important than the things on the right. Everybody kept reading that as only do the things on the left, ignore the things on the right. It doesn't say so, of course. It also has 12 principles behind it. Nobody knows them, nobody reads them, nobody clicks there. This is the only thing that people know by heart. The 12 principles actually make sense. Please read them. And then came the Software Craftsman Manifesto, which had the same structure because we like the recognition of the structure. And of course, the Agile HR Manifesto. What is Agile HR? It's no like idea. You recruit people in pieces, first the arm and then the leg or something. I don't understand it. And of course, this is the one that you really like. And somebody in the audience. Programming motherfucker manifesto, because we're only talking about things that aren't code.
Yeah, I like the first sentence the most. We are a community of motherfucking programmers who have been humiliated by software development methodologies for years.
Yes. So we definitely want a manifesto, of course. So the Flow manifest, we thought long and hard of it. Of course, we're going to keep the 4 lines because then people understand it's a manifesto and you don't even have to write it there. So we want extensive certification over hands-on experience because with certification we make a lot of money. We want copying methodologies over thinking for yourself. Yep. So why, if you work at a business, you could think of something yourself if you can just copy how somebody else did it in their business, which is not your business. Tool-driven confusion over building working software. We want endless meetings over focused flow. And we want mandatory gamification over authentic autonomy. And that is, while we ignore the things on the right, we do the things on the left. We just wanted to get that clear. And then, of course, in these times, we thought we should change it to a microfest, because that actually works better.
Everything's micro these days, right?
So,
micro breweries, micro teams, micro services. Yeah, so then the last topic.
Also, you have the buses, right? Micros.
Yeah, oh yeah, true, yeah. And then there's, of course, certification, because, well, there's money to make in certification. So rest assured that you can get flow certification. We're going to explain to you how it works, by the way. And so why do you need certification? Well, basically, it's to make, money, right? I think that's the big point. We can do, well, in Scrum, the amount of different certifications you can have on Scrum, it grows every half year, right? I have no idea, like professional this, professional that, professional things that are really not part of Scrum anymore, but yes, well, you can get certified and you pay a lot of money and it works, right? You take a multiple choice. They're really easy, by the way. If you want to become a Scrum Master, just read the 14 pages of the manifest or the Scrum guide, do the multiple choice, done, right? And then you can actually solve all the problems in the world, basically. So that's the point. So we're going to do this too, right? So basically, as an industry, we lowered our fences a bit too much, right? If you want to learn how to do karate, Kim knows karate, and so how long does it take to become a karate master?
I did it for 25 hours a week for, I don't know, 12 years.
Oh yeah. Well, then you were a Dutch champion, right? So that's good. So, but if you want to become a Scrum Master, well, it takes a 30-minute multiple choice exam, and then you're the master of Scrum. Which means you get hired by banks to solve bank problems, right? Or by insurance companies or government agencies or stuff like that. So yes, we want to have certification as well. Well, we make it quite easy. So
we have to. People are waiting, actually. We have to rush it up. We don't have time for this.
We started later, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm going to talk fast now. Even.
Yes.
So, yes, you can become a certified flow resource too, which is good, by the way. In our courses, you learn how to rip off Post-it notes, of course, which is vital. Learn how to move items on a Jira board, which is very complex. And also learn how to decorate your workspace. Because that is, well, a two-day course, well, we just thought, well, this presentation could be enough to get you started on doing flow, right? So we actually do the certification right now, so you can become a certified flow resource. So, which is good, and then you can print T-shirts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually, we're going to do it in 3 different questions.
Just write them down for yourself.
Yeah,
so what roles do we have in flow? Manager, project managers, and product owners, or we are all one team. Lots and lots, except for testers, of course, and resources.
Resources, oh yeah.
So you have
write down the answer.
Down.
Then we'll do question 2. Question 2 is, what is the goal of retrospectives in flow? First, to interrupt the daily flow of our resources. B, to endlessly discuss why the resources in our project have to work harder. C, to make sure we spend 2 days preparing demos. Or D, to watch demos fail together with our clients. So please write down your chosen answer and remember it for going to do the next question.
Yes, we have certification in flow because we want well-trained resources in our project. It makes our methodology look important. Flow is so complicated, you need lots and lots of training to become an expert. We want to make money.
Yeah. I have
it's
no
a hard
idea.
one again.
So, please remember the 3 answers to your questions, and we'll show you the results in a sec. And the result is, you all passed. Because all the answers are correct, and we made the money anyway. So, basically, you can take a picture of your, you fill in your own name, just get it from the deck or take a picture now, so you can get your own certified flow resource document, right? By the way, you do need to pay a continuation fee of 200 euros per year, and we'll give you our bank accounts.
Yes.
So, this is what we really believe, by the way. I'm going to do brief. Don't worry. So, that's mine, right?
Yeah, it's yours.
So, here's the thing, right? Software is a complicated industry. It's way too complicated to have one process to rule them all. It doesn't exist. So, it's us that built the software, right? We have to do the work, and the work is different every time. So, that means it's going to be work that we as humans do. And that's relevant.
Yeah. And we believe every organization or team will create and evolve the approach that fits them best. It's your company. You can be inspired by people who did it marvelously, and please do, but you would be an idiot to blindly copy it. Because your context is different, your people are different, and your purpose is different. You need to think of it yourself, and you have all the knowledge. You are the expert on your own company.
Yeah, yes, and that's the problem, right? There is no best practice. Every practice is within its own context. So your company is your context. And that also means that personal communication is still key, right? I cannot work with my team if I cannot daily communicate with them and not be on endless team meetings with whoever and whenever and stuff like that. We need this personal communication. It's what's keeping us alive, actually, basically.
Yeah, and we believe that trust and personal safety rule. Because if we really want to excel in software development, we need to be able to listen to every voice. Everybody knows a piece of the puzzle, and we can only do that if we all feel safe. So we have to stop hurting people by saying you're causing a red sprint, you're failing. Because if people keep on hearing they're failing, they're not going to be vulnerable and open up to you and explain what they really think. You need to create a more safe environment for people to actually open up.
Yep. And basically, we need this focus, right? We need to be able to get in flow. We need to be able to do the work. So we need to be creating an environment where we can do the work. And that's different for everybody. I have people on my team who love working on their own, even when they sit in the same room with the other people. They work on their own. Other people prefer to work together. And you need to facilitate all that to make people do the work in the best way they can.
Yeah, and we believe that continuous learning is essential because every day, indeed, JavaScript is a bit different. Every day, tech is a bit different. If we are not able to learn, then we're going to just die out like the dinosaur we saw in Trelew, right? So we have to be able to learn continuously. And the way to do that is to stop being in sprints every time. Because being in a sprint every time means you're constantly under pressure. You don't ever have the time to add somebody who doesn't know how to do something to do that for the first time, because it will slow your velocity down, and you don't want that. That's not a way to be sustainable. You have to change that.
Yeah, true. Very true. So, and also, yes, teams need to be self-organizing, and that is extremely complex, but it does work the best. I've worked with my current team for almost 2 years now, and we made them into a self-working team, a self-organizing team that actually does the work much better than they did 2 years ago. So this is crucial.
Yes, and let's just skip it because we really need to stop. So in the end, we also never should forget to have fun.
Yes, fun is relevant. Yeah, and if you don't succeed, then you can always remove the node modules and then do an npm install, right? So that's. so thank you for being here. Sorry that we're a little bit late. If you have any questions that we can do later or now or whatever, or with beers.
If anyone has a question.
¿Alguien tiene preguntas?
Una o dos preguntas. And I'll happy to translate it if we can get English. I'm sorry about that. I have a schedule. I'm sorry.
Hi. What it's like to work with you or in your companies? Do you use any of this stuff like in real life?
You mean all the stuff we presented in Flow? No, nothing.
Not this, but
I'll tell you, we don't have sprints. We have a Jira board. We rarely use it. We don't do estimation. We don't have retrospectives. We just do continuous delivery and do it all the time and learn every day how to get better at what we do. That's basically the flow. That's the core of what Agile is, I think.
Great, thank you.
No? Just one, last one over there, última.
So, as a developer, I've been through all the situations you described, and it's quite frustrating most of the times.
Yes.
So the question is, like, I feel powerless in terms of like how can I change my organization for the better? Because I feel like my management team is from the 1950s.
Oh yeah.
So how do we do it? Like how do we help to close the gap and bring all this?
Yeah, the shortest answer I have, but you probably have another answer as well, is do it in really small steps. Take tiny steps and improve a little bit every day. And so they don't see it. Do you have a better answer?
Well, I would say sit down with the managers, explain why it doesn't work, so and take time for that. So gather up with some people, come well prepared, and explain why the things that are frustrating are not working, and also come up with ideas how to do it better. And ask for at least the opportunity to get some freedom to try and do this. And if that doesn't work, I don't know how the market is here, but in Europe we tell everybody, well, just leave. People in Europe get job offerings at least 3 times per day. So the companies that don't adapt to what software developers want, they should become extinct. That's the only way to deal with it. Then the people will learn. And it's a bit of a harsh statement, I know, but it is, in the end, the people who listen should actually be rewarded for that behavior. And so I think it's appropriate.
Sure.
Un aplauso, por favor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amazing
Thank
talk. I want to become a Flow certified something.
No, certified resource.
Yeah, yes, resource, yes. You master or something. All right. Bueno, muchas gracias. Quédense ahí porque ya en un toque venimos con la charla de John Maddock Hall. Y sé que muchas de ustedes están esperándolo. La última charla del día y después tenemos el after, así que muchas gracias y un nuevo aplauso. Thank you so much.